These are the home movies of the Gumbrich family, filmed between 1937 and 1939 in Münster, Germany. We see Siegfried Gumbrich, a grain merchant, with his wife Louisa and their two children, Brigitte and Walter. They are doing what middle-class families did in Germany between the wars: playing, holidaying, and generally having fun. In the background are two of their friends, Dr. Julius Voss with his wife Stephanie. Julius Voss was a local rabbi. The Gumbrichs are a Jewish family. The films do not tell the whole story. The 1935 Nuremberg laws and further anti-Jewish legislation had destroyed the family business, and by 1939 left them with no income. The Gumbrichs repeatedly applied for permission to emigrate. It was denied. On the 28th of August 1939, 3 days before the outbreak of war, a befriended Catholic priest brought them to the Dutch border, and from there they made their way to England. They escaped at the last minute. Julius Voss, the rabbi, and his wife Stephanie, with their 2-year-old son, were deported in 1943 to Auschwitz and murdered.
Auf dem linken Arm haben sie uns dann eine Nummer eintätowiert und von dem Moment an waren wir nur noch Nummern. Wir haben auch am Anfang gar nicht gewusst, wo wir sind. Ja? Nachher haben eben die älteren Gefangenen haben uns dann gesagt, ihr seid in Auschwitz, ihr seid in Birkenau. Ich bin dann in diesen Block zurückgegangen am Abend und da stand eine Frau, die hieß Tschaikowska. Das war auch eine Gefangene. Und die hatte den Befehl bekommen von den Nazis, ein Orchester aufzustellen. Und dann hat die Tschaikowska zu mir gesagt, ja, wenn du Akkordeon spielen kannst, dann werde ich dich prüfen. Und ich ich musste unbedingt aus dieser Kolonne raus. Da habe ich gelogen und habe gesagt, ich kann auch Akkordeon spielen. Dann hat sie 100%ig gemerkt, dass ich noch nie Akkordeon gespielt habe, aber sie hat auch gemerkt, dass ich musikalisch bin. Und sie dachte wahrscheinlich, naja, die lernt das dann, nicht? Und so hat sie mich aufgenommen in das Orchester. Später hat die SS uns befohlen, wir müssen am Tor stehen und spielen, wenn neue Transporte ankommen. Sie wollten, dass die Menschen eben in Ruhe und ohne zu meutern in die Gaskammern gehen. Ja? Weil die Leute wussten ja nicht, wohin sie fahren, aber wir wussten es. Uns sind die Tränen runtergelaufen. Wir mussten spielen, ja. Wir konnten uns nicht weigern zu spielen, denn hinter uns stand die SS mit ihren Gewehren. Ich sag immer, dass diese Situation, ja, das war eins von den schlimmsten Dingen, die ich erlebt habe.
one of the most interesting pages of these minutes is this list, which was prepared by Adolf Eichmann for this conference. It gives the numbers of Jews as calculated by the SS in all the European countries. Even the Jews of countries fighting against Germany. You also find the Jews of England here in this list, 330,000 Jews of England, whom the Nazis intended to kill too. So they had really the plan to kill all the Jews of Europe, and they thought that they would be able to do this after winning the war. When I came here the first time, I felt very uneasy. Meanwhile, it's my working place, and I got accustomed to be in the rooms, which doesn't mean that I got accustomed to the facts we are dealing with in this exhibition and in our educational work. This is the most brutal part of German history, and I think we have to face it, and we have to deal with this history. I think it's an important task, but it's not always easy to talk about these things.
Mein Bruder hat mir doch sowas total verschwiegen. Das wusste ich nicht. Er war der Meinung, dass Widerstandsaktivitäten nichts für Frauen seien. An diesem 18. Februar, als vormittags die Flugblätter, Sie kennen ja sicher die Geschichte in der Universität, war ich auch in der Universität und habe gehört, dass ist eine Studentin verhaftet worden. Und bei einem Besuch im Gefängnis, als er schon zum Tode verurteilt war, hatte man Sprecherlaubnis für 5 Minuten höchstens. Und da habe ich ihn mal, als wenn jemand nicht zuhörte, ganz schnell gefragt, warum hast du mir denn davon nichts gesagt? Da sagte er ebenso schnell und kurz, das war doch nichts für dich. Das war also nichts für mich, meinte er. Vielleicht hatte er recht. Macht viel mehr Kompromisse. Da muss er von Kräften geleitet gewesen sein, die mir entgangen sind. Er hatte ja wahrscheinlich eine Stunde vor seinem Tod, dem Gefängnisgeistlichen einen Brief an mich diktiert. Und da steht das drin, was auch mein Leben dann verändert und bewegt hat. Da schrieb er mir unter anderem, du sollst dazu bestimmt sein, mein Andenken und Wollen aufrechtzuerhalten. Ich sage allen Freunden meinen letzten Gruß. Sie sollen weitertragen, was wir begonnen haben. Sodass also als Motto über einen Teil meines Lebens dieses Weitertragen steht. Und glaube ich, dass ich habe auch manchmal das Gefühl, mein Leben ist sehr anstrengend geworden, besonders jetzt, wo ich so alt geworden bin und kaum noch gehen kann, habe ich das Gefühl, dass mein Bruder dafür sorgt, dass ich das alles noch machen kann.
Berlin played an important part in my life. My father was a Jew from Vienna, and my mother was a Prussian Christian. A wonderful mixture. We had to adapt to a war economy. The Jews had been pushed out of economic activity from the 8th of November 1938. Jews had to wear the yellow star. I wore it with pride. We were told the Jews were sent on the transports to go to work. But old people, making munitions, it was clear the truth wasn't being told. I watched as they were forced into the trucks at Grunewald train station. I thought, that's not for me. Would be the end of me. My death. To wrench me out of an intact family into a strange country. And I decided I'm staying here.
Hinein in ein fremdes Land. Und ich entschloss mich einfach, halte ich mich. Ich hatte ungeheuer.
I had a lot of poor non-Jewish friends. None of them Nazis. All lived around the Große Hamburger Street and Alexanderplatz. That was later the center of illegality.
Ich habe keinen jüdischen Ausweis mehr.
I no longer had a Jewish pass, a yellow star, no apartment, no ration cards. Officially, I was dead. I didn't exist.
Ich existiere nicht mehr. Täglich immer wieder.
Daily, always new things. Where do I go this evening? Terrible rain.
Regen.
I didn't even have a raincoat.
Wie lebt man?
How do you live illegally?
Man lebt gar
You
nicht.
don't live.
Zu der Problematik der Illegalität.
To add to the problems of illegality, you had the problem of the bombings, which affected us every day.
Brav. Und es sind im Keller.
And you were in the cellar, and boys were with girls, and it was hair-raising, never ending.
Gehen die vorbei? Das sind alles sehr junge Leute gewesen.
And they were all young people. The fear transformed into romantic feelings. Love.
Und von mir ist es keine Frage.
And for me, it was no question. I had the greatest love of my life at that time.
Hätte ich nicht
If I hadn't had this love, in spite of the bombs and being surrounded by the Gestapo,
sozusagen, hätte ich nicht
if I hadn't had the nights in love with my boyfriend,
meinen Freund gehabt, dann
guaranteed I wouldn't have
hätte ich
survived.
nicht überstanden. An dieser Stelle befand sich das erste Altersheim der jüdischen Gemeinde. Es war ein Altersheim für Arme. 1942 verwandelte die Gestapo es in ein Sammellager für jüdische Bürger. 55.000 Berliner Juden. Vom Säugling bis zum Greis wurden in die KZ-Lager Auschwitz und Theresienstadt verschleppt und bestialisch ermordet. Vergesst das nie. Während dem Krieg hütet den Frieden.
I've worked with Leon for many, many years at the Jewish Museum, where they have an exhibition about his life and his mission. It was a very difficult moment coming into this house and no Leon. And, you know, first of all, he lived for 97 years. I mean, he's had amazing longevity. And he was such a force. The house really is in disarray. I mean, he lived on his own. Perhaps some of the other survivors who marry again build a home and have a family. Leon had nobody. In Leon's bedroom here, there was a lot of stuff that was ready to really throw, but underneath a pile of old clothes, I found this throat lozenge box, and it might be the thing you just throw away. But I had a look inside, and I found a note, handwritten note. Leon was great with his notes, and this note seems to be sort of written for the person who found the tin. It says, "Our wedding rings of my wife Else and me Leon." And he then goes on to say what he would like done with these rings, and he talks about the fact that he'd like to get them soldered into one. And then inside, in this very old envelope, I find 2 wedding rings, gold. One large one and one smaller one. The wedding rings of Leon and his wife Elsa. Now, Leon in 1942 gave his precious objects, important material, to two non-Jewish friends. He gave them to them because he feared that he was going to be taken away somewhere, and when he returned, he wanted to retrieve them. Leon Greenman, his wife Elsa, and Barney, 2.5-year-old Barney, were deported, first of all to Westerbork camp in Holland, and then onward to Auschwitz-Birkenau. Within a few hours, Elsa and Barney had been murdered. Leon had been selected for work and didn't know the fate of his wife and child. And in fact, survived the many camps that he lived through with the thought that perhaps they were still alive and that they'd be reunited. So when Leon returned after the war, his search was to find out what had happened. And all that he had were these materials that his friend had kept safe. And these rings must have been in that pile of material that went into the safekeeping of his non-Jewish friend. And Leon must have gone back and retrieved them and stayed with him all those years.